61 wins. That is the number Denny Hamlin is sitting on right now after his emotional Las Vegas victory earlier this month. 61 wins across 21 Cup Series seasons, enough to put him alone in 10th place on the all-time wins list, ahead of drivers whose names are carved into the very foundation of this sport. But here is the thing about Denny Hamlin. He does not look at 61 wins and feel satisfied. He looks at 61 wins and sees what should have been. And what he said on his own podcast this week about the win total he actually deserves, the number he would have if luck and circumstance had been even remotely fair to him across his career, is one of the most fascinating and honestly one of the most justifiable things any driver in this sport has ever said out loud. Today, we are breaking down exactly what Hamlin claimed, why the math behind it actually holds up, where he is targeting in terms of wins before he retires, what Kyle Busch said when asked if Hamlin was going to pass him on the all-time list, and why the 2026 season might genuinely be Denny Hamlin's best and last real shot at the one thing that has slipped through his fingers every single time he has reached for it. Before we get into it, subscribe to NASCAR Report right now if you are a real NASCAR fan who follows this sport every single week. We are building this community from the ground up. On a recent episode of his Actions Detrimental podcast, Hamlin was asked a question that sounds simple but opens up one of the most interesting conversations in NASCAR history. How many wins would he have if you took away the ones he won by luck and added back the ones he deserved to win but did not get? Hamlin answered with complete confidence, saying it is not an exaggeration that he would have 75 wins. His exact words were direct and clear. He has far lost more races than he has ever lucked into. 75 wins. That is a number that puts him ahead of Dale Earnhardt on the all-time list. That is a number that puts him in a conversation with only a handful of drivers in the entire history of this sport. And before you dismiss it, think about what we actually know about Denny Hamlin's career and the races that slipped away from him. In 2011, Hamlin won a race at Michigan by leading only the final 8 laps. That is an example of a lucky win by his own admission. Now think about the other side of that ledger. The races he dominated, led the most laps, had the fastest car, made all the right calls, and still somehow drove away with nothing. Phoenix in 2025 is the most recent and brutal example. He led the most laps in the championship race. He had the field covered, and a wrong call on the final pit stop cost him the Cup title he had been chasing for 20 years. Not a win, a championship. Gone on the last lap. When a driver with that history says he deserves 75 wins instead of 61, that is not arrogance. That is a man who has done the honest accounting of his own career and come to a conclusion that is genuinely difficult to argue with. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because while Hamlin says he deserves 75 wins in a perfect world, he's clear-eyed about the reality of where his career is actually headed. When asked what he realistically expects his final win total to be, Hamlin set his number at 67. He described the 75 figure as pie in the sky, and said realistically he does not see Dale Earnhardt's total of 76 as something within reach given the runway he has left in his career. Hamlin is signed to drive for Joe Gibbs Racing through the end of 2027. With 61 wins on the board right now, that gives him at most 2 full seasons to close the gap. His immediate target is Kyle Busch's 63 mark, which would be a significant achievement and a strong testament to the incredible run he has put together late in his career. And just to give you the full picture of the mountain Hamlin is climbing, behind only Richard Petty with 200 wins and David Pearson with 105, Kyle Busch sits third on the all-time list with 63 wins. One spot ahead of Busch is Dale Earnhardt with 76. Hamlin at 61 is now just 2 wins behind Busch and closing fast. With his Las Vegas victory, Hamlin also joined Richard Petty, David Pearson, Dale Earnhardt, and Jeff Gordon as the only 5 drivers in NASCAR history to win Cup Series races across 20 or more seasons. His name is in company that very few human beings will ever occupy. Here is one of the best subplots of this entire story. Because when reporters asked Kyle Busch directly whether he was concerned about Hamlin catching him on the all-time list, Busch gave one of the most honest and self-aware answers you will ever hear from a NASCAR driver. Busch said he has seen all the publications about Hamlin closing in on him, and that he had any way to rebut it, he certainly would, but that he doesn't. He predicted flat out that Hamlin will top his 63-win total this very season. And then he said something that is genuinely revealing about where he sees his own career right now, that he had been hoping to get into the 70 or 75 win range himself, but that his career has stalled out at 63. Stalled out at 63. Those are the words of a driver who feels bad about where things are headed. And they tell you a lot about the competitive reality facing Busch right now compared to the momentum Hamlin has built heading into the back half of his career. Busch at RCR is a two-time Cup Series champion. He is one of the most talented drivers this sport has ever produced, and he is watching his own record get hunted down by a teammate's former co-owner who is driving for a different organization in the final chapter of his career. That dynamic alone makes this one of the most compelling personal storylines in all of NASCAR right now. Now let's zoom out to the big picture, because the win count conversation is fascinating on its own, but the championship conversation is the one that actually keeps Denny Hamlin up at night. Hamlin has been direct about what his real goal is for 2026. The win total matters, the legacy matters, but what he actually wants, the thing that still drives him out to the racetrack every single weekend at 45 years old, is the championship, the one that slipped away at Phoenix in 2025, the one that has been just out of reach his entire career. The early 2026 numbers give genuine reason for optimism. After a 31st at Daytona and a 13th at Atlanta, the season looked shaky, but then came a 10th at COTA, a 5th at Las Vegas before the win, and the dominant 61-win performance that followed. He led a race-best 134 laps at Las Vegas, including the final 49, and did it after being sent to the back from a pit road speeding penalty. That is not a driver hanging on. That is a driver operating at a genuinely elite level. The playoff track lineup also strongly favors Hamlin. He has won at every single track in the 10-race postseason. 6 wins at Martinsville, 5 at Darlington, 4 at Kansas, 4 at Bristol, 3 at Homestead, 3 at Las Vegas, 2 at Talladega, 2 at Phoenix, and wins at both Charlotte and Worldwide Technology Raceway. And the absence of road courses in the postseason removes his biggest historical weakness from the equation entirely. Hamlin himself has acknowledged that it took him a few weeks after losing his father to even feel like driving again. But he said that over the last few weeks leading into Las Vegas, he had genuinely regained his love of the sport and gotten completely refocused. And the race results showed exactly what a refocused Denny Hamlin looks like. At 61 wins, he's just 2 behind Kyle Busch in 9th place on the all-time list. Consistency will be key in the 2026 points format, and consistency is the one thing Hamlin has always excelled at, even in years where the format didn't necessarily reward it the way it should have. Here is the full picture of Denny Hamlin in 2026, a driver who says in a fair world he deserves 75 wins instead of 61. A driver who has set his realistic target at 67 and is actively hunting down the man just 2 wins behind him on the all-time list. And a driver who is operating right now at 45 years old after the worst offseason of his life at a level that has the entire garage paying attention. The win count claim is sensational, but it's not wrong, and the championship conversation that surrounds it makes this one of the most compelling individual stories in all of NASCAR heading into the 2026 regular season. Drop your take in the comments. Do you think Denny Hamlin finally wins the championship in 2026? And what do you think his realistic final win total actually looks like when he eventually retires? Subscribe to NASCAR Report for this conversation every single week. Like the video, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you at Martinsville.